All right, today we're going to do weekly challenge number 7. The short of this is we are going to be pulling data, pulling data from this site called Quandl via an API, and it's going to come down in a JSON package. And so once we get it as that JSON package, we're going to have to further parse through that for the data for the data, and then ultimately present it as such. These 5 columns, fields, what have you. Some additional context for where the data is coming from. Like I said, it's coming from this search engine called Quandl. Quandl is a site that offers access to several million financial, economic, and social data sets. They allow you to access the data as well as download them in various formats. In this case, we are going to access the data via an API and then bring it down as JSON, like I first introduced. And so the goal is, we're trying to aggregate the annual outbound tourism stat for the U.S. Dating back from 1995. Okay. So if you look at the input file, this is essentially just a string, a URL string. By itself, it's not valuable to us. Knowing that we're going to be dealing with JSON, there is the temptation to use JSON Parse or Builder. If you're not familiar, just use one of them and go like, all right, well, let's see where we can go from there. But this only deals with JSON packages. This is not a JSON package. This is just a string. So you have to recognize that, and you have to first realize that, okay, we need to first, deal with the API portion of this problem first, which would be the download tool. Okay. But in case you didn't know that, if you just randomly added it on, it wouldn't work anyways. We only have one field, so when you connect it to the, let's just say, JSON parse tool, it will auto-populate to the only field. You run it, and it will error out because it doesn't understand what's going on. Okay, so even if you tried, it wouldn't work. So, like I said, we have to first deal with the API part. We have to first download it down. So to that point, you use the download tool. Where's the download tool? If it's not here on your ribbon, you can go to this add and remove bezel and add it in. Okay, once you have once you have added the developer tab in, download. Okay, and then once you put it in the download, you have to just configure it as per usual with Alteryx. So in the field, we only have one, so it automatically populates. We're going to output it as a single field, single string. No need to save. Okay, so that's it. Let's run it. And so this is our JSON file right here. Okay. Now, you might look at this and go, I don't get what's going on. That doesn't look like data. It doesn't look like this. Well, that's just because it's by nature of the JSON package. If you want to get a better idea of like what this looks like, I'm gonna copy what's in here. Okay, and I'll just paste it here. Yeah. So it's truncated, so you can't see all of it. But if you want to kind of get an idea, it's kind of like it's like sets. Okay, so the way the data is arranged in JSON. So if you see here, for example, this first line, the sets are bifurcated by these two. I'm really bad at what do you call those 2 dots? Anyway, these 2 dots. So the first one tells you what the variable is ID. The second one is the value. Conversely, first one is the variable data set code. The second one is the value Toronto, USA, so on and so forth. So if it wasn't clear in the results window for Alteryx, hopefully it's clear now just in this open notebook, even though it's truncated, that, the data is here. Download data field is the data, is the JSON data, even if it may not look like it now. And so to truly parse out your information, get into more massageable form, now is where we go into to use the JSON tools. So you type in JSON, and also, of course, it's up here too because it's part of the developer ones, but we're going to parse through what we've just downloaded with the JSON parse tool. So if we go to the JSON config window, you just need to select the right one. So you already saw before, if you select the URL, it's just going to spaz out because there's no data in there. Likewise, this is not data anyways. I mean, it's data. Objectively, it's data, but this is just telling you the response. Okay, so the 200 is a code, internet code for, it works essentially versus like 404, 401. I forgot the name. So we move this to download data, okay, and we select what we want the outputs to. Depending on what your ultimate goal is, there might be value in splitting it up by data type specific fields. In this case, I'll do both just to illustrate, but I'll just show you what single string first is. You run it, and all your data comes in as a single string. So if you see here, if you go back to what I was showing you in the notepad, here's all the variables and here's all the values. So this conveniently puts it all in one string. Once again, depends on what you want to do. You could split it to different specific fields. And so what that's going to look like is, I'm going to shimmy this over. What that's going to look like is for all, it has stripped through it and has recognized, whoops, I highlighted over the wrong thing. This is now stripped through the entire JSON package, and it has now broken it down by the different values. So here are the variables, and here are all the different values it has found. It has found strings, integers, floats, and booleans. And so if you see here, the first one, dataset ID, is not in the string field, it's in the int field, so on and so forth, and numbers are kind of split between. So really it depends on like what's downstream of what you're going to build. This could be useful, this may not. In our case, I'm going to put in a single string just because it's simpler. So I'll leave it at that, single string, right? So let us take a look again at what we need. We need the following headers and we need the following data. What do we have in front of us currently? We have a bunch of headers and then a bunch of data. So first off, most of it is, yeah, it shows all 244. So if you look through all of it, the bulk of it is the data. So that's one thing we can cut. The other part is it looks like, if you look into the nature of it, data ID, code, this looks like typical report header stuff. So it looks like there might be a clear separation somewhere there. Like, fortunately for us, a lot of the data is just digits, so we might be able to separate on that later. But let's start by getting the column names. Fortunately for them, they're named functionally. So we want column names. They are named column names. So, let's get them out. There's many ways you can split out, get these fields out. Okay, at its most basic and at its most clear, just use a filter tool. You could, if you want to be efficient, use a regex expression. I personally would use it, but for the matter of illustration, I'm going to use filter. And also, one thing to always remember is, yeah, there are more efficient ways to build workflows, and sometimes maybe the solutions will dictate what you absolutely have to use. But if it works, and if your workflows are small, it doesn't really matter. It's a bit of an art, like one way is not necessarily better than the other, per se. If it's a small workflow especially, it really doesn't matter. And also, I think an argument can be made that like, when you make a super efficient workflow where everything's baked into the minimal amount of tools and it's super smart, sometimes that may not have value in the company, because if you leave the company and if you're thinking from a team perspective, and from a team perspective, you want to build things that people can follow. And sometimes even if you annotate it, if it's like super so squeezed into one tool, people just don't get it. So there is value sometimes in building messy, widespread workflows, because sometimes the logic is a little bit more clear that way. So anyways, I digress. Let's get the headers. What headers do we need? This is kind of hard for me to always look at it, because look at it. The headers are kind of truncated by the size of the field. So I'm going to first do this just to make life easier for me. I'm going to do field info, and that's going to pull all the field info from that, and it will, oh no, I think it's probably just going to give me, oh no, yeah, it will. So I need all of these, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all of these, all records or selected cells without headers, okay? I'm going to pop up the notepad again, paste it so I can reference it later. There we go, okay. This way it'll be easy for me to look for it. So I need date, arrivals, tourism, 3 tourism fields. Okay, so first I'm going to just cut fat. Let me think about this. Dataset contains. I'm trying to think whether I should do it in 2 steps or 1 steps. Dataset contains columns, names. I'll do it in 2 steps, just that way to illustrate. Okay, so the easiest way is, if I want a column first, I'm going to just filter on. So the field will be JSON name. Okay, and I'm going to say as long as it contains. I'm going to open this up again. As long as this contains data column name. If I do columns, will it catch all of it? Maybe I can be lazy. Let's run it. What does come out? No, it doesn't come out with anything, huh? Data columns. Oh, it's column. That's why. Okay, let's run it again. Columns. We get the index value, which we don't need. So we'll just do columns underscore n. That should be able to get it. Yeah, there we go. So the first one is, why don't we cut some fat, get the column names. We only need date, this one, expenditures. What else do we need? Expenditures. It looks like all we expenditures in the country. So that one, hold on, let me move it over. This one, so 1, 2, inbound travel. I think it's just the first 4. USMF, passenger yeah, it's just inbound. I don't know why it took me so long. So we're just taking the first 4 actually. So after we've already filtered by this, we can do something very simple again. We can just do contains 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Should we do that? Yeah, why don't we do that? Why don't we put another filter on here now? Like I said, you could easily do this in Regex. You can build a really nice one. And I think at some point I'm going to have to use Regex, but we'll just do another one. So JSON name, Regex, we'll say it contains, and we're going to go here because I want to do a list of it. So I recognize that in the solution, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need the first 5 answers. So I'm going to do that. So contains, I'm going to just do, oh, I can't do that. It's not JSON. It's, should I do it that way? Contains. No, I'm going to have to do an in function. So JSON name, in, and then we're going to have to take one of these, copy without headers. Okay, we need the first one for sure. We need the second one, and just so on and so forth. This is not the most ideal because once again, it's hard-coded, but for illustrative purposes, that'll do. We only need 4, I believe. 4, last one, yep. Do that. And there we go. And now we've got the headers, okay? So this is already the first half of it, all right? We've got the headers. Now we need to get the data. So we've recognized that, and it's arranged the same way actually. So the first 5 is what we need. So if we go back to the data and look at actually how originally everything was arranged, looking at the data, if we go to the results window, the data is arranged as thus. If you look closely, it's very functional. So it's the name of the variable and then digit dot digit. What does the digits mean? The first digit is the value, the row value. So everything here belongs to the same entry, 0, entry number 0. Conversely, everything here belongs to entry number 1. And so this tells you its group, and then the second value, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, tells you under which column it falls under. So if you look here, column 0 is date, and if you look here, 0, 0, date. For group number 1, date, and so on and so forth, right? So our goal here is, now that we've already filtered it by the 2, and this section is now the data set data, we want to just get anything that has, we don't care about the first digit. We want the first digit. That'll tell you the group. But we want the second one, specifically just the ones that are 0, 1 through 4, the first 5, okay? So how do we do that? We can do a filter. Things that end in 1. Yeah, you could. You could. You could do a filter, but the problem is you have this center digit 2, which makes it kind of tricky. So you probably could write a very complex filter, a custom filter. But in this case, knowing with regex in our toolbox, we'll just use regex. What we're going to do is we're going to write a regex expression that takes into account this value as well as this value, specifically the ones we want, okay? So to that point, what we're going to do is we're going to write a regex formula. So to do that, you can do 2 things. You can either do it in filter or you can do it in regex parse. In my case, I'm going to do a filter. Okay. Wait, let me think about this. If I do regex match, it will, yeah, I think it'll work. I think it will work. JSON name. Okay, so this is what's coming in, okay? So we're going to do a regex formula. So regex match. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to say, hey, as long as it matches this formula, pull it out. So the string is, of course, JSON name. All right. And the pattern will be, so the pattern, when you use regex, you have to use their sublanguage. So it's something a little bit separate from Alteryx's own little nuances of like how they do this, then, or operators, or so on and so forth. And it's actually a sublanguage used across a lot of different languages. But that's what I am going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is, and without getting too much into regex, there's certain ways of writing it, but what I'm writing here now is saying, hey, look, first look for any JSON name that has these words here. And then, because I don't want to be so specific, I'm going to, rather than keep that 0 there, I'm just say, hey, just give me any digit. And then conversely, I'm going to escape that period and then say, after that, I only want any digit. I have to remember, I think this is the bracket between 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see how that works out. Blanked. That means I messed up somewhere. Escape the digit. Here. Let us go back and see if what that does. That should, okay, so this one works. It's saying digit dot digit, so that's worked out. So I think all I forgot is I don't know how to, I forgot how to write, oh gosh, I'm dumb. Is it just this? I feel like I have to write digit. Oh no, that's right, yeah. So what I wrote here was, before I had it, before I wrote it wrong, I think I added too much. So this right indicates, hey, pull any digit. But then after writing that, I think what I indicated was pull any digit, and then in addition to that, pull any number that's also 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So kind of like double dipped. And so I deleted that first indicator of, hey, pull digit, and just said pull any digit with a dot, because I escaped it, because dot sometimes can mean something. Actually, I wonder if that's going to work. Yeah, it works too. Regex is kind of funny, and I don't use it often enough to know which characters need to be escaped. But that's why I initially put it in front of the period, because I thought that period might be a character, although it is. It's an any character. But does this seem right? 1, 2, 3, 4. No, that's right. Yeah, there's only 9 values. Yeah. So what I was saying was, like, sometimes I'll escape characters, but it's just my lack of experience in Regex. So that's why. I might do things that are unnecessary. But yeah, so I'll do that, and then I'll do that, and then it gets that. So now we just need to merge it. I mean, here's the data, and then here's the columns. And so in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a crosstab transformation. But before I do that, knowing that I'm going to do a crosstab, I need to match it somehow with one another. What I mean by that is I need a unique name. So here the unique name is, or one unique name is dataset columns underscore names dot 3. Unfortunately here it's called dataset dot data dot 0 dot something. So we're gonna have to give this a unique name. And actually, by nature of knowing that this is going to be a crosstab, for this one, I have to do something additional. So not only do I have to give it a unique name to join it to this column, but I have to also now start grouping it. Because remember, the first one indicates each entry. So here's entry 0, here's entry 1, and here's entry 2. So I actually need to create a group field too, so that when I crosstab, everything's lumped together correctly with the right group instead of all together like as one giant soup. So this is where I'm going to have to use regex. So do regex. I'm going to speed it up a little bit just because it's been 18 minutes and I feel like I've been rambling. So regex, I'm going to do the JSON name, and I'm going to do a parse. There's 4 different ways you can do it: replace, tokenize, parse, and match. Replace is just to find something and replace it. Tokenize is to, if you have a repeating pattern in a string and you want to pull all of them out. For example, if you have lots of number 3s in a text soup, you use tokenize. Parse is, it'll just go through it once and pull out what it needs. And then match is just kind of like for QA. It'll tell you true, false values, whether it's in there or not. So in our case, like I said, I need to give this a special value to group on and also column on. So for that, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy this so that it recognizes the pattern. Okay. But as for regex parse rules, when you put things in a bracket, it will recognize it as what you want pulled out. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do the same thing here. So what I'm saying is, hey, recognize that there's something in here called dataset data with 2 digits, but those 2 digits, please parse them out separately so that I can use them. And so as such, it has done exactly that. First one is the group, second one is the header. And so conversely, we're going to do, actually, probably not. You know what? I'll do it just to be uniform. So actually, I won't do that. So regex. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I now need to parse out the header column values. I could have just done a delimit, honestly, with point. I could probably even just use a formula tool. But just because I used regex here, I'm just going to do it here. This is a little overkill for what we're doing. But once again, copy this without headers, put it in here, and then tell it, hey, whatever this number is, parse it out. Parse it out. And also it might break because I did not use the right column. Okay, and so here we go. And so we are essentially at the solutions doorstep. Go here, we will parse it out. We want it to flip it by this, so regex1. The values are these headers, strings. We'll take the first value, conversely for the bottom one, okay. So this will be the header values, regex2, okay, regex2. The values in there are, of course, the value strings. But then we want to group it by the group value. Otherwise, it'll just mix all of them together. So we'll do JSON regex1. And so we'll run it again. Oops. You have to pick a concat method. We'll do first, run together. There you go. Here's your data set. Here's your columns. And we are just going to union it now. Just stack it on top of one another. Like this. Okay. Union it. And now it's sitting on here. And we're almost done because these are our true headers. So we will use a dynamic rename tool. Oh, that is take fields from first row of data. Okay. And that should work. So you see here now we have the right headers. This is extra field, so we will do some cleanup. There we go. And this should be our final solution. Okay. So date, inbound, yada, yada, yada. Let us look at what their solution is. So one thing you'll notice is there's 23 records, whereas we have 10. Notice that this is a data input tool, and also by nature of what we're doing here, these weekly challenges, they will be dated, and because they're kind of like users provided and like kind of a community effort, it is not abnormal to see um, some differences between what you get and then what's originally proposed, just because the data set always changes, and especially for something that's like a live API. If you look here, if you look at the data that came out, it's just a lot smaller. They probably just, at some point, Quandl is like, we don't need a, especially if people are just playing around with the data, or I don't know what the rules are to help maybe oops, I'm just kind of blanking, save on, I don't know, just server space or server processing. They probably just said, we're going to just give you less. So that's the first thing, that like there's 23 entries here as the answer, but it's not. We only get 10, but that's, if you look here, it's probably because Quandl just started limiting it to 1 year window, whereas this one was like 2017 to more than 1 year, 23 2-year window. Okay, but we can still compare apples to apples. Hopefully, let's see, 2009 12/31. So let's actually do this. Let's do this. We'll copy the solution. We'll go here to compare apples to apples. 12/31/2009. 5513, 14662, 11. Here, let me. So I'm comparing right now the bottom ones, this one and this one. And if you see here, they're all the same. So, like I said, sometimes your solutions look a little bit off. Sometimes it truly is user submitted error, the ones who created it. Sometimes it can just be the data input has been outdated. It could be a lot of reasons, but the short of it is this is how you do it. This is how you pull data down via API. This is how you parse through the data if it is in a JSON format. And then here's just your typical workflow gibberish of, how do you do some typical data parsing, in which case we used basic filters, regex, crosstab, and then union dynamic rename. Going back to what I was saying very early on, you honestly could have done this whole step with regex, but like I said, anyone, you can do it however way you want.